Hey guys, this is Eric from Miller Music, and today we are talking about guitar necks and just really understanding what the specs are on a neck, such as the radius, the fret size, the neck shape. I just replaced the neck on my Strat, and it's something that I've been thinking about and trying to understand what exactly these all mean. So I wanted to just share those with you, so hopefully you can find this helpful if you are going to buy a new guitar or just replace the neck on your current guitar. All right, let's jump right in. Okay, so the first thing to think about is the radius of the neck. And what the radius of the neck is the amount of curvature on the top of the fretboard. The higher the number, the flatter the radius. So if you have, for example, a 12-inch radius, like this guitar right here, that has a much flatter radius. And typically players that play faster, like speed players, maybe on an Ibanez guitar or a more modern guitar, might have a flatter radius. Also, classical guitars have flatter radius fretboards. Most guitars have a 9.5-inch radius, which is a little bit rounder, good for chords, but also good for bending strings and playing lead lines. And then some of the more vintage guitars have a 7.25-inch radius, which is a rounder fretboard they made in the 50s and 60s on a lot of the Fender guitars. It really depends on what your preference is in terms of your hand shape and size, of which you like a flatter radius or more of a round radius. The second thing to think about is the shape of the neck. Okay, so that refers to what is the shape on the back of the neck. The radius is on the top of the neck. The neck shape is on the back of the neck. Guitar manufacturers have named this after different letters. So the C shape is a common one, which is the shape of the letter C. It's kind of a round all the way around. You also have a D shape, which is more shaped like a D. So it goes up a little bit here, and then it curves, and then it goes straighter down here. You also have a V shape, which goes like the letter V, and it comes to like a small point here. Also, there's things like the modern C, where Fender puts this on a lot of their guitars, where they taper off on this side of the fretboard a little bit more than a straight C, or like a soft V, where you have a little bit more rounded edge on that V. You also have things like a slim C or a thick C. So a thick C would be really a fatter neck, if you will, whereas a slim C would be a thinner style neck. I think the neck shape goes a long way in determining, the overall thickness of the neck, how wide it is, and the feel of the neck. The next thing to think about is the fret size. The fret size refers to how big the actual frets are on the neck. Doing this, when thinking about fret size, one thing to think about is the bigger the fret, the less resistance you're going to have on the fretboard. And then the smaller the fret, you might feel the fretboard, the wood a little bit more. They have the jumbo fret size, which is the biggest fret size, where it's tall but also wide. The medium jumbo is the most common, which is it's a jumbo fret, but it's a little bit smaller, both in width and height. And then the last one I think I've seen is a narrow tall, which means it's tall like the jumbo, but it's a little bit narrower front to back or side to side, the width-wise. Some players find it easier on a jumbo fret or a narrow, taller fret to bend because there's less resistance on the fretboard. The same thing with like a 12-inch radius, easier to bend, okay, because you don't have that curvature you're sort of working against. The fourth thing to think about is the nut size or width. You can have a wider nut or a narrower nut here, also the width at the 12th fret. Most guitars are 1.65 inches at the nut. On a lot of the American Strats, they have 1.685, and I think this is the standard on most Gibson guitars as well. A lot of PRSs have what is known as like a wide, thin neck, and what they're referring to is the width from the low E string to the high E string is wide, but it's thin kind of front to back. The last thing I want to talk about is the finish on the neck. There's three that I've seen typically, which is the gloss finish, the satin finish, and then the road-worn finish, which is kind of like that guitar. Personally, I prefer the satin finish or the road-worn because there's less resistance on the neck. It's really smooth. You can run your hand across it. Also on the road-worn, really smooth because it's kind of emulating what it would feel like to have no finish on the neck. The gloss necks have a little bit more varnish in there, and sometimes you can kind of get your hand sticky on the neck, so sometimes players will like to sand that down with a little bit of light sandpaper or even steel wool. will do the trick. Lastly, I've also noticed that no two guitar necks are actually the same. Depending on when they were made or the person who made the neck, you might get a slightly different sanding job, so the neck doesn't feel exactly the same, even though both might be C shapes, the humidity levels and when it was put together. So really the best thing to do is go out and try the neck, see if you like it, see how it feels. But I hope this will help you in terms of understanding the specs on a neck and then learning about what is comfortable for you, what you like in a neck, because everyone's hand shape is a little bit different. Everyone has different playing styles, preferences. So there's no best kind of neck. There's just different sizes and shapes. So hope you found this video really helpful. Please subscribe to this channel. We do all sorts of videos on guitar, recording, and songwriting. So if you like that kind of thing, please subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks so much.